Let's indeed get started. So thank you all for coming. This is our biggest virtual Imagination Club event ever. So it's really awesome to see you here, and even a couple of new faces for the Imagination Club. So I'm really glad you've all joined us this evening. Very quickly, the Imagination Club is a safe space for trying out new ideas. It's a place where facilitators, trainers, and enthusiasts can give workshops on subjects that interest them, and get feedback from the audience. Sorry, I'm doing this very badly this evening for some reason. So for facilitators like Carsten, it's an opportunity to try out new ideas with a receptive, intelligent, and incredibly good-looking group of people like yourselves. For you, the good-looking people, it's an opportunity to learn something new in a short 90-minute session. Most likely, if you're intrigued by what you learned this evening, you can chat with Carsten, you can learn more, you can do more research. Even if you're not that intrigued, you'll almost certainly learn something new, and you'll meet, at least virtually, some other good-looking people like yourselves. Typically, of course, the Imagination Club does its workshops live. Unfortunately, owing to the coronavirus, we've had to go online, and been doing it this way for a few months now, and it's quite interesting. This evening's speaker, speaking of speaking online, this evening's speaker is Carsten Wendt. I think many of you know him already. He gives public speaking trainings for clients, including banks, startups, manufacturing companies, and even European institutions, regulatory authorities, nonprofits, and associations, and all kinds of other people. Carsten is also a longtime member of Toastmasters, which I think most of you are familiar with. And he recently competed on the national level and became the Belgian champion of the International Speech Contest for inspirational speeches. And this was online. Toastmasters, like the Imagination Club, has had to move from real live events to being online events. And Carsten had to adjust from a speech which I think he originally intended to do live to an online speech. He later went on to compete regionally, again via Zoom, against top Toastmasters speakers across Europe, and became what the Toastmasters group call the district winner. So he's considered a top online speaker by Toastmasters across Europe, and I think that means he knows a thing or two, or maybe even three, about giving online presentations and being very persuasive. And Carsten has very kindly offered to share some of his knowledge with us this evening at the Imagination Club. So at this time, it's time for me to shut up and hand over to you, Carsten.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey.
My pleasure.
Indeed. 2.5 months ago, middle of March, we went into lockdown, and I had a conversation over Skype with Susanna Corridori. Maybe some of you know her. Yeah, hands up if you do. Okay, 1 or 2 people do. And she is also a fellow Toastmaster, and we talked at that moment because we had both qualified in this series of contests for the next round. Now, as Jeffrey had already alluded to, at that point, our speeches that we were giving were still in the real world. And that is what normally the contest is. You go to a place where you have an audience and you feed off the audience and you see how the audience reacts. And so we were having this call at the moment that it seemed clear that this was moving on now. And I was complaining. I complained to Susanna and I said, look, I don't know whether I want to do this. My speech, that if I would have known it was online, I would have never chosen this type of speech. It includes some private stuff that I just don't feel that I want to tell to anybody who can dial in, basically. I felt very uncomfortable and I said it. And Susanna then answered in 6 words. She said a little bit more afterwards, but that's how she started. And her 6 words were, I think you should do it. And in that moment, before she said more, it felt like scales off my eyes that I realized, my God, Carsten, you idiot, what are you doing? You have just lost all your business of live trainings. Everything has been canceled or postponed. You realized and you know that you've got to get used to this online world. You've got to train people online. So now you're going to miss this opportunity to actually learn how it goes. I just realized that in that moment. And then I made the shift. And basically all this just to say that if you would have spoken to me 2.5 months ago, even maybe 2 months ago, I was not an online speaking enthusiast. I was skeptical about this whole thing. I just hoped that this Corona thing would pass very fast. And now I'm an enthusiast. I really became enthusiastic about our possibilities of not just talking online and it not being so bad. I'm enthusiastic about the opportunities. And I found that we actually have a chance and new chances of persuading online. And so in the next few minutes, I want to share with you 3 big things that I found that we can do online. And the first 2 I propose just to do very shortly. And then the third one is the real topic of the workshop that we will stay with then until the end. But so here are the 3 things. And the first one is, I noted it down here. The first one is, can you read it? Your practice place is the speaking space, which is obvious to me now, but I needed to discover that. When I was practicing my speech in the contest, in these contests, you have to work with other people and get feedback and get coached if you want to have a chance. And so when I shared my speech with other people, what could I do in the lockdown? I couldn't go to other people's places. So I went onto Zoom and I could either record the video and send it to somebody else, or I had a session directly where I gave the speech live online, and then whoever was helping me would give me feedback. And I quickly realized that if now, let's say I made a movement like this, and you would say, hey, stop, Carsten, that looks good. Why don't you do that also in the real contest? Then I can see immediately what you mean, because I've got the same view. And we all have the same view. And what I'm practicing and the feedback that you're giving me in my practice is exactly the same frame of the camera as I will have in the contest, in the real world. And in that moment, I realized what really is very obvious to me now, that the way we practice is exactly the perspective of how it's going to be in the moment that it matters. And really, what better practice conditions can you have than that what I practice now will be exactly the same in the moment that I do it. So that, just as a general principle, I think is great news for everybody who likes to prepare. And if you don't like to prepare so much, well, maybe it's just a reason more. So your practice place is your speaking space. That was the first principle, or the first big thing I discovered about speaking online. Here is now the second thing, and that I call props in the box. Now, props are usually things we hold in our hand, right? But I like to see that as a little bit wider, also in the sense that how do we interact actually with our content? And here I'd like to move back a few months to the world, how it was when I was giving live trainings with people in the room. And for that, I'm going to get up and just remind you of how a lot of presentations are in meeting places, in offices mostly. People have PowerPoints, right? And they throw them on the wall, which is one thing and doesn't need to be very bad. But then what do a lot of people do? They turn around and talk to the wall. And in that moment, of course, all the connection, and that's really a key theme of mine this evening, in that moment, the whole connection goes because I'm not looking at you anymore. I'm not with you anymore. It's just my slide. And that's not very helpful. So in real life trainings, what I help people a lot with is that if they don't feel they can go away from slides, or if their environment just wants them to use slides, then I tell people, well, use your slide as a prop and interact with your slide. And for example, I can say, here on my slide, this point, look at this point. That's important to us right now. This is what I think we should focus on, or this is what I want to focus on in the next 10 minutes. Or I can talk around a graph and say, here, 2008, before the crisis, this was our revenue. And then just a month later, it had dropped by half. Things like that then make our interaction with our content more like a prop. And wouldn't you agree that that's a bit more interactive and a chance to keep the connection? Yes or no? Yeah, I think most of you agree. And if you don't, this is the thing, right? At least here now, your practice place, you can check what works for other people, check with them. But I think that's an alternative to just using slides. But how do we deal with that in the online world? I mean, we've seen people use virtual backgrounds. I think you've seen that there are lots of ways we can do it. And I have seen 2 weeks ago in the Imagination Club, when Lars presented here, he works very well with slides. And I think that worked very good. And I also saw your workshop, Andy, and I think you also interacted well with your slides. But I think a point I'm making is that slides are not the only way we can interact with our content. And if I now have slides, of course, online, it's even a bit more difficult because I'm just this little thumbnail on the side and it's hard to interact with it. So what I can do, what can I do? I can do this. What I've already done. This is suddenly a slide and it is some content I can interact with. And this piece of paper is a prop. And I think that is nice that we find these ways of interacting online with things we can actually hold in our hand. And by virtue of that, keep the connection with the audience. Also, because it's a bit of a phenomenon in speaking that as soon as people hold something in their hands or demonstrate something, our fluency of speaking is kind of higher. It's more easy to feel natural. So it's not a bad idea in general. And did you see how I just took up the paper and now it's away again? If you do that in a meeting room, that's very different. Here, I can have props around me and you're not seeing them. You're not seeing me prepare them. In a real meeting room, that can be a little bit artificial, that I've got something there, I walk over, I have to get it. But here, I can just take this as a means of demonstrating how I protect myself from the noise of my children around the house when I'm trying to work these days. I just pick it up and now it's gone again. And I think that's amazing. That's an online chance of how we can interact with things, with props that we never have in the real world. And I can even make noises. And now the thing is gone again. So that was my second point, props in the box. Let's have maybe a quick test. What occurs to you that you can do right now to take things into your hands? Let's all do it together. Do something in the screen. Thumbs up. That's a nice one. What else can we do? We can wave. Yeah, exactly. Catherine is... Yeah, you're muted, Catherine, but otherwise that... Yeah, we can signal all kinds of things. And that makes a nice atmosphere, I would say. Lenka's looking through her glasses. Jeffrey, I can't see what's on there actually. But Andy, can I invite you to show us a little interactive piece that you found?
This is I've made a robot of myself and I'm going to ask for a cup of tea. There you go. There you go. I've got a lovely cup of tea now.
Amazing, yeah. I've seen Andy do it before and it just blows me away. Yeah. So there you go. The first 2 points, I wanted to make them short. I hope I did and not spend too much time on it. Your practice place is the speaking place. Props in the box, 2 unique opportunities of online speaking. Now, let me come to the main point for this evening, the point I want to stay with, and that is this one. I called it Pathos Through You. What do I mean with that? Who of you knows Virginia Mercuri? Yeah, Lenka does. I would have thought maybe a few more people. She is also a Toastmaster. I mean, she's active in many fora, but she was one of the people who gave me feedback on my speech. And Virginia had seen my speech still when she was in the live audience. And there was one part of my speech which made people laugh. And I'd like to repeat that here, but I can't because it's a Toastmasters insider's joke and it just wouldn't work here. But so, you know, actually when a joke is quite good, when people who've laughed about it before have to laugh about it again. Just like I did with Andy's self who comes in and serves him a cup of tea. And what surprised me is when I gave my speech online with Virginia watching, that Virginia said, this moment where you make me laugh, give me more time to enjoy it. I want to have more time with it. And that's really where I had a huge realization that I realized, yeah, even though I'm not with you now, and even though I don't see my audience, I, as the speaker, with my words, I can still have an effect on you. We can make people laugh online. We can maybe make them cry. That I haven't tried yet. But we can, and that for me is the main point, we can touch emotions online. And that's actually what I want to practice this evening a little bit. And now just a very short summary or excursion into the rhetoric framework that Aristotle introduced, that he said there are 3 means of persuasion. And one of them is pathos, which is our emotions. The other one, which is mostly for some people the only means of persuasion that they use, is logos, which is just the question, does it make sense to me what you're saying? Does your argumentation make sense? And then the third one is ethos, and that is you. And that I find is so important. So here we've got actually pathos and ethos. The ethos is you. You is your character, who you are, your credibility. Do I have trust in you? Do you believe right now that I know what I'm talking about? If not, everything else I say is not really, doesn't really matter anymore. I can't persuade otherwise. So pathos and ethos are very important, and they work together. The way I touch you is through me. And hence I'm making this point so much that presentations and virtual online being is more than slides. It will often, if I want to touch your emotions, and touching emotions is very often the bit that is missing to lead people over the threshold of persuasion, so to speak. If I want to touch your emotions, then it's through me. And so, as said, I want to practice that a little bit. I think we can all do that. It's actually not so difficult to do, but maybe it needs a little bit of practice. And so my invitation is that we, in a moment, I'm going to give you 3 minutes time to think about it, but that we think of a moment, that you think of a moment in your life where very soon, be it that you give a training, be it that you have a webinar, be it that you give a presentation at work, be it that you are in a virtual meeting and have something important to say, that we always think about the possibility of having this short moment, which could be 30 seconds, could be a minute, could be a minute and a half, can be a little bit longer, but doesn't have to be. That we have these few minutes where we find a deeper space, where we reconnect with what is important to us. And by virtue of doing that, have a moment of gravitas or inspiration that moves people. Any questions about that so far? No, okay, super. Then I propose that, or let me tell you how I've imagined this, that we are all going to take a moment to think about such a moment that we could have in the next few days or weeks. And then we're going to have a few volunteers who are going to practice that in front of us. And we are going to give some feedback, and we might invite the volunteers to redo the one or other bit so that this touching emotions, the moving through pathos becomes a little bit better. So, as we are later going to choose some volunteers, I propose now that you take a moment to think about 3 things. First of all, your persuasive moment, what will that be? What is the persuasive moment? Is it a webinar? Is it a training? Is it a moment of whatever it is, a moment. What is that moment? Second, what are you trying to achieve in that moment? And that's the essence of persuasion, right? If I can only persuade you if I know of what I want to persuade you. So what is your persuasive goal? And then the third one is overlapping a little bit with the second, and that is to say, in order to reach this goal, which emotion do I need to touch? Or even more concretely, from which emotion to which other emotion do I need to bring my audience? So maybe to give you quickly 2 examples of what that could be. Let's say, Jeffrey and Andy, you probably know 1 or 2 people who you think for a long time have wanted to give a workshop or would kind of love to give a workshop at the Imagination Club, but haven't dared to do it yet. So their mood might be semi-interested, and you may decide, okay, this person now, I want to persuade him or her to really be excited about this opportunity now and bring the mood from semi-interest into action and determination and say, I'm going to do this now, which would involve a feeling of excitement and enthusiasm, I guess. A second example is something I lived in a training, which was superb, because there was this lady who was a customer service manager. So she managed all the people who are responding to the customer on their phone when they have a problem. And she worked for an IT company, and that company sells platforms on which businesses depend. So this has never happened to her, but she said, I want to practice this in case it happens. If all our platforms break down, all hell is going to break loose. People are going to call us and they're going to be upset. They might even scream at us. And my job now, this is what I want to practice, that I step up to my team and tell them what we have to do now. And she had a very clearly sorted out from the beginning that what she needed to do is, first of all, calm people down and make them get rid of their fear and be able to say, okay, I know what to do. I know how to behave. I feel better about this now. And find probably also a little bit of, not just being not fearful now, but feeling positive about it in a difficult situation. So that actually demanded a few things. She needed to be very authoritative as well, and very to the point. She needed to say, look, in 50 minutes, you're going to have some speaking points. There's one thing, by the way, that we are never going to mention. In that moment, she had real authority, but otherwise, her own calm demeanor, really, at least in the training when she presented it, worked so well in calming people down. At least that is what I thought would have been the effect. So there you have an example. And now I propose, Andy, shall we do 2 or 3 minutes for everybody for all of you to just think for yourself, by yourself, in quiet, what your moment is, what your goal is in that moment, and what the emotional shift is.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so regarding the third point, the emotion, I guess that can be actually 2 different things. On one hand, the emotion which you give, and then on the other, the emotion which that person needs to change, or not always? Aren't these 2 actually different emotions very often?
Yeah, they can be the same, right? That I can be, if I want to inspire you with hope, I mean, in public speaking, we say that you cannot inspire others without being inspired yourself. So sometimes it's the same. If I want to be contagious with hope, then I have to feel that hope myself. But I think the example just before was a little bit that she had to be very calm when people are fearful. And well, actually that was she mirrored the emotion that she was going to give. So I think often you're mirroring, but I'm sure there are a lot of examples where you might have to have another feeling. That would be actually interesting to figure out a little bit now. I'm gonna bring back my acoustic device. I think this exercise actually took a little bit longer because I thought we were in a breakout room, and I asked Andy whether we can come back, and then he said, well, actually we're not in a breakout room, which is very obvious to me now. So I'm actually not going to call immediately for volunteers now. We all can have a little bit more time in the back of our mind to think about the speaking situation and maybe have ideas bubbling up as we do something else. Because before we come to actually the speaking exercise, one thing that is important, of course, in online speaking is that, and I think that's already really working out well this evening, and I think in mid-March that might have been different, that we need to be looking okay online, which means that we need to have more or less good lighting. I don't know what you have at your disposal. I can quickly show you maybe. I've got here a few photographic lamps that help me light up. Of course, you can't quickly go out now and buy some of those if you wanted to. But sometimes there's a quick way in which you can lighten yourself up. Maybe take a lamp that is close to you. So that is one thing we can do. The other thing I think that is important if we want to have a direct impact is that we have eye contact and that our face is not too far away from the camera. So in a moment where I really want to reach you, then I think it's important that you can totally see my face, and that then my face is not down here somewhere, no, up here somewhere, but I think a good frame would be to say it's more or less two-thirds up in the screen, my eyes, I mean. And a tip that you've probably already heard is to have the camera more or less at eyesight, which is what I think most of us have. So here now the breakout room. Andy, shall we send people in groups of 3 into breakout rooms to help each other with some little tips on how our online appearance right now can up a little bit? You there, Andy? I can't hear you. You're muted, I think.
Yeah, I was just creating the rooms for you.
Okay, super. Thanks so much.
Sugar, I left the breakout room too soon. Oh, Ramona, you're there.
Not a problem. Everyone's going to be forced out soon.
Okay, Ramona, we talk again later. Andy, how the hell do you get yourself to serve you tea? I'm fascinated.
I was playing around with the video, so I used my webcam to record. So the laptop stays in exactly the same place. I used a different software to record it, and you can actually use that recording as a background.
Amazing. Really cool.
I was just playing
Can you
around.
do that again, please?
You want me to do it again? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can choose it. It is fun. I made several of them. So here it is again.
We're back. So, what do you think? Do we all look better or not? Yeah.
Getting there.
Getting there.
Carsten, could you tell us what lamp it is that you're using? Because the light is really perfect.
Yeah, what I have is, let me take one of those. It's a photographic, I've got 3 of such lights. They're photographic lights. And the trick of them is really that they've got this cover which diffuses this light. So you don't get shadows. I bought that many years ago, just for photography actually. And I think I paid around 100 euros for 3 of such lights. But one thing who has got a ring light? Let me ask it as a question.
What? Sorry?
Lenka.
What?
Lenka has a ring light. Can you show that to us?
Oh, like this?
Yeah. So that's a ring light. Lenka, I don't know how much you paid. I was recommended a light that I bought for a ring light. I don't have it here right now, but I used it during my contest, which I bought for 25 euros on Amazon. Not sure how long it's going to hold, but it works well. So I think a ring light for 25 euros is something that will get you quite some way.
So and where do you position it then?
Right in front of you.
But then behind your screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lenka, is that where you have it?
Yeah. It's like how do you say, tripod? And then you can put it in different heights, so you can also change the type of light.
You could also have a halo.
You can use it
or you
behind
can put it behind your head. Yes. Yeah, it's good. It's a good tool.
Actually, in our group, we
makes
weren't quite sure what you were expecting from us, so we weren't quite sure what you wanted us to discuss.
Oh, okay. Just some tips on how you can just have a better visual impact on camera, be closer maybe, or if you're too close, further away, just improve the lighting a little bit. But I must say, first of all, hat tip to Chris Meulemans of the Toastmasters Club in Leuven, from whom I've seen this exercise. And with him, it was more relevant because at that point, people were still not as accustomed to online speaking. So what we had the before and after was much stronger than it is now. I think you all look pretty good. Jeffrey said it from the beginning, lots of good looking people on the call. Okay.
Well, I was not prepared at all. I'm on the floor here because I'm relaxing at the same time. I was not prepared to perform today.
Yeah. But we're just testing today, and if now maybe a ring light would be a good thing if you want to have a persuasive moment in the future.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question, Carsten. So what I'm always in dubio about is whether to look in the camera, which is very unnatural, or whether to look, I'm inclined to look at the people on my screen, but then I'm looking under my camera. So when I see you talk, I can really see that you look into the camera, and then you look me in the eye as a matter of speaking, and that's of course more convincing and more direct communication than to just look, like somewhere else on your screen. But how to do that? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, well, Elsie, thanks so much for introducing the next exercise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was exactly the idea, that we have 1 or 2 volunteers who tell us for a few seconds to what they like about the Imagination Club. Well, a few seconds, maybe half a minute or so. What they like about the Imagination Club while trying to hold natural eye contact with the camera. Elsie, you just gave the answer yourself, right? That you also think it's good when people actually look at the camera. It's weird, but I think if I look at you now, I'm not looking at you, but I'm looking at the camera, but I think you have the feeling that I'm looking at you.
Yeah, exactly.
And over time, I got also the feeling that the more I practiced talking into the camera, that the more natural it felt. And somehow I feel now that I'm connecting. It's weird, but I think we need to practice it. Hence the exercise. Who wants to tell us what they like about the Imagination Club? Yeah, Miriam. Go ahead. Got to unmute you.
So my name is Miriam and I'm a natural lifelong learner. So I am always looking for inspiration and learning opportunities. And I found this in the Brussels Imagination Club. And if it would not exist, it would need to be invented. And for me, this is like a mind gym where I can get in a 2-weekly basis new inspirations. It saves me a lot of money and time, because I don't need to read books, because in these 90 minutes workshops, I get the essence of things to improve in various grounds. And I'm incredibly grateful for Andy and Jeffrey, who have founded this Brussels Imagination Club, and to be part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
So, what would you say? Can we have a thumbs up or, yeah, where's my camera? A thumbs up or a so-and-so? Did she have good eye contact with us?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, there are a few. I think you can improve it a little bit. Are you sure, by the way, that you're looking exactly into the lens?
It's true. To be honest, I looked at myself.
Yeah. So it's so hard. Andy, you actually told me that you've got a little trick that forces you to look more into the camera. Could you show us that?
I have a post-it to remind me. It's a bit old now, and it's probably not going to stick back again now I've taken it off. But I've got to look here. There's another little trick I do is I also, if it's not a big group like this, I move the face of the person I'm speaking to just underneath the camera. So if I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking just underneath it. So it looks as though I'm looking at the person that I'm talking to. But that post-it helps an awful lot to remind me to look there when I'm speaking at the camera or to someone.
Yeah, yeah, good trick to use it. I would actually say, or I got that tip that even if you're not speaking online, to sometimes during the day, just go to the camera and speak to it. It really takes, time to get used to have this reflex to talk into this lens and also to check where it is exactly. But the practice place is the speaking place, so you can actually practice that while you record yourself. But did you feel that, Miriam, the second time she spoke to us, that the short moment, that there you had more of an eye contact? Again, fingers up if you think so. I did. Yeah. Okay. So now eye contact is really important. And when we come have our volunteers now, you of course have to think of that, but don't worry, if it's not there, it will come and we can remind you of it. So who would like to volunteer and come forward with their short, inspirational, emotion-touching, persuasive moment? Prashant,
yes.
You're the only candidate right now. Okay, Prashant, do you want to tell us who we should be as an audience and what you want to do with us? Or do you think it's better that we feel that on the way?
No, yeah, you can feel on the way. I would like to start with a question like, what comes to your mind when I say compassion? Okay. Is it good, bad? Or you should have compassion, right? As a leader or as a public speaking personality, you have to have a compassion for your audience, for yourself, for everyone around, right? But have you ever thought compassion is sometimes could be bad or even ugly? So I want to take your emotion from feeling about compassion from good. It could be like not so good sometimes. So that's the thing I want to convey.
Okay. And what you did right now was not the moment, but it's coming now.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
So
then
it was
super.
the time.
Let us give Prashant a big round of applause, but also to know that we're all going to give him feedback. And like the Imagination Club will later do, also always this question first, what it was good, and then we're going to give him some tips to improve. Okay. Prashant.
Yeah, compassion, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was a time when I was working in a pet clinic back in India. And a lot of patients used to come to visit me with their pet, with their cat, with their fluffy dog, and so on, right? Sounds amazing. And being a doctor in charge, I should be compassionate for their pets and for the pet owners as well, right? But most often, not most often, but sometimes what happens, like some of the so-called pet lovers used to visit us late in the evening when our clinic hours are about to finish. And I was get confused, like, should I treat the patient or should I ask them to come again? But then when I look at the patient, when I look at the dog or the cat is in need of my attention, because if I don't attend that patient, that dog, that cat might die. And then compassionate person in me tries to help him. That's good, right? But the so-called pet lover does this thing so often because he or she is busy in her working hours, working her own stuff. And whenever she finds time and dog or cat is about to die, they think to visit us. But at the cost of our own time, we had to treat it because otherwise the dog or cat will die, right? So in this case, the compassion, too much compassion is not good for my peace of mind. And it's ugly when these kind of things happen again and again and again. And sometimes, and recent statistics about veterinarians in states, for example, shows that a lot of people are committing suicides because of the so-called compassion fatigue. So I think you have to think again when you think of compassion. You have to keep it in moderation without affecting your personal life, for peace of mind. Thank you. I think I convinced you that compassion is not all that good.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. Also for being our first volunteer. That's excellent. Who wants to start giving Prashant a little bit of feedback on what you think worked well?
I can start.
Yeah, Colette.
I think it's good that he started with a personal experience from his own life, and that he referred to it. It made the distance between us and him very small, very quickly. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, that's what one could call storytelling, right? You take us into a story, and that always has the power to touch us and like you say so nicely, reduce the distance between us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What else? Elsie, yeah.
I have a more general remark, which is independent of Prashant, but the thing is, there's a big difference looking at a person with a headset or which has nothing like you. So, and then sometimes there's a small, ear set, and sometimes there's like a big headset. I think that really makes a difference on how you come across. And I must say, I don't know why, it's probably just me, but I find it less attractive to look at somebody with a big headset. Do you think that also plays in the persuasion or in, the image that that comes across?
Can we have a quick vote on that? Thumb or middle?
Yeah, what is thumb then?
Yeah, so a bit mixed opinion. Everybody perceives things differently, right? But I saw a number of thumbs up here, and I would agree. You know, I mean, for Prashant now, you said it was independent of him, but you are just with the headset. So maybe in a moment when you do give us a second version, maybe you can try without it, or do you have your microphone there?
I think I can quickly comment on that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm putting headset because of the sound and the light velocity doesn't travel at the same, right? So when I put headset, my microphone is close to me, and that helps. Otherwise, if I speak from quite far, then there is a discrepancy in the video and the audio, you know, and then you don't get the right. But Carsten might be using the microphone with his the journalistic thing. I think he could tell more about it then.
But that's a rational argument. The thing is that, of course, there's a good reason to do so, of course. But the thing is that it still influences how you come across.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I add like
some people?
Could I add a tiny observation? Because I've been doing so much Zoom, and sometimes I need to put my headset on because my partner is also around. For me, it's much more intimate. I hear you directly in my ears. You're not like a background noise. So I just wanted to share that other perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that I've heard people say also before. I think what Elsie is saying now, and we had a few people here, including me, who gets that point. I think one insight here is, Prashant, that it's good to know that maybe if you have that for some people you need to counterbalance that with even more closeness. And maybe one way you can do that is come even a bit closer to the camera. Could you do that and lean a bit more forward to build a closer connectedness with us? Yeah, I think that could work. Yeah. Any other ideas that we haven't touched upon yet for Prashant?
Yeah, if I can just maybe add, I thought it was in general quite good. One thing that I noticed, I think you have a chair which moves easily from left to right. I know, it's not a big movement, but because of a screen, it really felt like you were speaking like this. Maybe if you try to like put your feet on the floor, it will help to look straight and without that movement.
Yeah, I agree. Dalia, you also wanted to say something.
Yes, I liked how you in the beginning looked into the camera, and it really made the difference. I think it was more like you are talking with me. And the other thing, I like the story because story did the point. It was enough of a story to think about the point you were trying to make. Thank you.
Oh, super. Any other points for improvements of if Prashant did it a second time now, where you would say, that is something where you can touch me more, or maybe you can tick a little bit more out here or there, or maybe a new idea? Andy.
Maybe a little bit more sort of animation and enthusiasm and sort of looking around. I remember the time that blah, 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 when I was working here. Yeah, maybe just sort of animate a little bit more, be more enthusiastic and excited about the story.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Prashant. That would be my main point of feedback, that I think I kind of get the story, but at the same time, I was a little bit lost as to what exactly happened. And that's just a trick, that if you introduce a story, make it the most of an immediate scene as possible. So instead of saying very often it happened that pet lovers come, can you maybe tell one story of one pet lover in one moment where we feel the emotion that brings us into the scene? I think you could do that actually also faster if you find a way. Bring us into one scene and faster. Let us feel the emotion that you felt at the moment and the conflict maybe, exactly what it meant. And then maybe round it off like you did. You have a bit of a call to action, but towards the end, let us feel a little bit more. And maybe that is by connecting more even with your emotion, and then maybe coming closer to the camera and really bringing your point home. Yeah. Are you ready to try that now, or do you need a moment?
May I add something?
Yes, sure.
So
For me, I also liked it, but one thing to the story that I wanted to add is that maybe now, because we're doing an exercise, we're just doing it very quickly. But if you just paused a little bit longer, then I personally would have had some time to digest what you just said, so that I could imagine the story in my head. Sometimes, well, we forget that. And I also, when I get excited about a story, I speak very fast, but I think we should do the opposite. Well, I personally would have liked if you just paused a little bit and then I had time to digest, yeah, and imagine the situation. Yeah, that's my point.
Could I add something as well?
Yeah, of course, Oliver.
Yeah, I would say when you're using the story, I think stories are great ways to send messages and to convince people. But one thing you can do to engage them even more is to bring in some imagery, sort of paint the picture, bring in some, maybe even the sounds, and bring the feelings that you have inside, the thoughts that are going through your head, and to go into that moment, and then you'll project that as you speak.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the added information to the scene building, that if you take me into a scene, then I'm close to something sensual, I can see something. And indeed, like in internal dialogue or mirroring a dialogue that you had in that moment, those are great ways of bringing us in and letting us feel something. And I think you can handle that, Prashant, no?
Yes.
Do you want to go again now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe Andrea
one
has
last
something to say.
bit of feedback from Andrea. We can't hear you.
I would agree to what was just said about building pictures and images. So for example, when you said pet clinic, I was not sure, did he say pet clinic? So only afterwards, when you mentioned animals, I grasped that it was about pets indeed. And I was thinking that the background was very neutral. You're sitting before a wall, right? And were you to talk about this seriously to some audience, I think I would put some pictures of that pet clinic in the background so that people grasp more easily that this is actually about India, about clinic, about probably completely different surroundings than what we are used to. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great feedback, actually. I'm preparing my speech for my next Toastmasters meeting, and it will actually help me. I didn't write my speech yet, but I'm just building around. So it's a good feedback already. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to go again.
Okay, then we're going to give you another round of applause.
When I say compassion, what does come to your mind? Yes, of course, it's good, right? Every leader should have compassion. But today I want to talk about compassion, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was the time when I was in India working at pet clinic. One lady, so-called pet lover, full of tattoos of dog, of a cat, and so many other stuff on her body, visited us one fine evening when the time we were about to close our clinic. And she was trying to persuade us that we should treat her dog. And I was like, no, look at the time. But when I looked at the dog, if I don't treat him, he might die. What do you do then? Of course, being a compassionate person, I did treat the dog. But for my peace of mind, this was bad. So the compassion was bad because I wasn't at peace. I had to come again next day with the same energy, which wasn't possible. And what is the ugly part? This happens again and again and again. And as a result, a lot of veterinarians commit suicides. And personally, I left the practice part and I moved into research part. So compassion is not always good. As we say, everything is in moderate is good. So it applies to compassion as well. Thank you.
Now, was that better or what? Yeah, yeah. If somebody wants to say something, switch your microphone off and give Prashant a quick compliment. I thought it was much, much better.
It was great. Yeah, the story was clear in your head. You came across, it flowed. Fantastic. You still moved a bit in your chair, so there's a little bit of nervousness there, but fantastic, much better.
I realized that in the middle, then I was like, oh, no. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned, Andy, is just this thing that it takes time a little bit to get used to this online speaking and really try to feel that there is the connection, even though we don't see the people. But I think what we experience now is also this experience I had in my speech preparation, that people need these pauses. And that if you give us these pauses and take us into the scene, if you go at an inspirational pace, so to speak, then you can touch us. And the second version definitely touched me. Super, Prashant. On to our next contestant, so to speak. Who wants to try next? Be careful with hand movements now. Any hand movement might be interpreted as a... Okay, you know how this goes. If we don't have volunteers, then we need to pinpoint somebody. I'm not sure whether I want to do that.
I can do it.
Paulina. Yeah, oh, by the way, can I say something? It would be nice after we've seen this moment of general inspiration that could be relevant for all of us, but was relevant especially for veterinarians. Can we maybe have an example of something where you really, of a scenario where you really in your life would need to persuade somebody in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so
Paulina?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to give a real example. So on July 15th, I have to be part of a webinar, online webinar with people from a bit of everywhere in the world. I'm in the vertical farming industry, and we are going to launch a new product. And basically what I have to do is through the webinar, like a part, I need to convince people that the new solution is better than our competitors. And so, like, thinking about the emotions, what I'm just gonna try to be convincing, clear, maybe happy. I don't have any jokes or humor yet to add, but I guess that might be needed. And on the other side, I want people to be inspired and surprised.
Cool. Surprise is always a powerful weapon. Inspired and surprised. And inspired for buying into your proposal.
For example. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's give a big round of applause.
Fellow guests, thank you so much for attending our webinar about our new Module X system. This is a great system that we've been working on for the last year, and we are very excited to show this to you. So I'm going to show you some pictures in a few moments to show you the following facts about the new system. First of all, you will have 98 square meters of cultivation space, which is 50% more than all the current competitors in the world have. Secondly, most of our plants could grow between 2 weeks, would need 2 weeks and up to 4 weeks of growing time just to have a crop ready to you to be eaten. And thirdly, we decrease the price from, now I'm just making up a number, from 2,000 euros per square meter to 1,200 euros per square meter of growing surface. Now, let's look further into how it looks like inside.
Yay. Thank you, Paulina. Let's do the same procedure. Who wants to give Paulina some feedback of what really worked well here?
I can say something?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I thought she had really good eye contact. And also, I felt that when she smiled about something, it also made me smile. So I was more receptive to her message then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of enthusiasm, right? And that was contagious. I thought so too. Uh-huh.
She also sounded really expert, like she's empowered and she owns the story, and so she was very believable because she obviously believes in it.
Yeah, it's this mixture of believing in it plus having this credibility of being the expert that you are, right? Uh-huh. Yeah, that I, by the way, have very often in presentation skills training, when people participate who are not that sure about their, well, presentation powers. But that's something that comes up in the feedback all the time, that people say, yeah, we feel that you're an expert. We feel you know your stuff. And Paulina is of course, very sure about that. But that's very soothing for many people also to know that that's where we can take power of, just by knowing what we know and being experts in our field. What else? Colette.
I thought it was good the way she summarized everything, and she said, then we're going to see this is a good point, number one, and number two is a good point, and that's the third point. I thought that was a very good summary, and it gave us an idea of what we could expect.
Yeah. So there's concision, enthusiasm compared with concision. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I like that she showed her hands like this. I think it's interesting. The thing I noticed at some point is that because she was touching the table, the screen was moving, and I'm very sensitive to that because I always have screen on my lap, so it can be terrible. I think we have to be careful about the movement of the table and the movement under the computer.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I didn't pick that up actually. Yeah, so people perceive things so differently, right? Or some are more perceiving one thing more than others, and that's something to look out for sure. Prashant.
Yeah, thank you, Paulina. It was really nice. You were confident at right pace. But I have one suggestion, that maybe you can, rather than starting your speech per se with technicalities, for example, you said we are going to start with the module X. Maybe you can start something personal story. We start with something personal message story, or just bringing the human part in place and then going into technicalities. Yeah.
Maybe I could build on what Prashant just said, because I really liked what you said. I thought it was very clear, but I also noticed that you slightly changed your language because we happened to be in the same group together earlier on. And when you went into presentation mode, you used more complicated language. So you said, I want to present the following facts. Whereas in actual fact, if you're talking to a friend or when you were talking to us in the group, you would have said it quite a bit more in a relaxed manner. And therefore you would have kept the Paulina who you really are, rather than going into formal mode. So that was just one thing maybe to think about.
That's a very good point. I don't know what people want to know, which Paulina they want to see.
Yeah, well, I take from what Tanya said that she liked the Paulina she met in the breakout room.
If I could just add something as well.
Yeah, Oliver, of course.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we have to remember that because people buy from people. People buy from people they like. So if they like you, they like what you're saying, and they like how you're presenting them, they're more likely to buy from you. So absolutely to speak to them as you would a regular person. I would also suggest maybe for the content, you can bring in more of the, begin to ignite a bit of the pain the customers are facing. Talk about the problems. Like, don't just hate it when, this happens and when this happens. Well, we have this solution which does this. Just to, again, get more of the emotion first in the audience that are watching you.
Yeah. Those are big persuasion insight tips, of course, right? Remind people of the pain they have or the problems they have. And I think that's a good tip. And I think maybe that can go together with what Tanya said, that if you, Paulina, and first of all, to say again, I mean, at the beginning, you have a lot of energy, and I think you, for a good way, succeeded in actually making people want to listen to more. That I think was a big objective there because it's the beginning of the speech. But I think, yeah, indeed, you could touch us more if you come to a place of not only enthusiasm, but also a bit more gravitas, letting us feel the importance of this change that is actually coming. And maybe take a little bit more time with that, go a little bit deeper, remind us of the pain or the problem, like Oliver said. Because for me, I mean, the people you're speaking to, they might understand that easier, but I realized that you were talking facts, but I didn't quite follow them. It didn't quite sink in. And that's why I think you didn't touch my feeling as much as it could have been.
May I add to that?
Yes,
so I had a similar feeling. So what I liked with Prashant, with his speech, was that in the beginning, it starts, well, maybe that's also just my style, how I do the presentations. But first of all, it's good to start with the bigger picture, kind of the vision. Why are you presenting vertical gardens? What's the problem? Maybe here, of course, the question I'm asking here depends on the target audience. Maybe they already know why they want to buy a vertical garden. But I personally don't know why I would need to buy that or what's so good about it. So maybe you could present something about the challenge and then how vertical gardens can solve this. Sometimes it helps just to open the picture, and then you can put the points why your product is so great.
I think it's a great point for improvement idea.
Yeah, I think so, Marianne. We need to feel a little bit what the benefit of this will be for us, right? And the why. Mm-hmm. Okay, quickly, Elsie, and then Paulina, you can go again. Yeah, Elsie.
I just want to make a general point, independent of Paulina, and that is that the background is actually quite important. Now that I see all these people speak, I mean, usually I have like one counterpart, and I pay less attention. But now, of course, you start looking at things differently, and so Paulina has a very let's say sober background, classy, sober background. When I look at Oliver's background, he put up just an image as a background, and I found myself not hearing what he said because I was just looking at the landscape. So I'm not sure what you said, Oliver, but it's just that I now noticed, and I must say that sometimes when I do video calls with clients or prospects, and I have one of my colleagues participating who's at home, and then she has this cupboard behind her, and it's a bit of an old-fashioned cupboard. It's her parents' home, and the cupboard is a bit old-fashioned, and I noticed it, and I said, oh, that's not a very nice interior, and which is really ridiculous, I know, but I mean, these are all the things that do influence how you look at the scene. It's also part of the scene.
Yeah, I agree. The background makes up for something. Again, it's something to test. The practice place is the speaking space, so we can test with people what they relate to. Paulina, I mean, now that Elsie said that, can you maybe, by the way, bring your camera in a different position that your head is a little bit up and we see you a little bit closer and not so much space above your head? Yeah. And then finally, Andrea said here, Andrea, you said a scene setter would be good. So this comes back to what we had for Prashant as well, that if you can build a little bit more of a scene. Andrea, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah. Is that what you mean? Could you give Paulina a bit of an idea of whether you had a more concrete idea behind that?
Yeah, it connects to what was said earlier, that it would be good to picture the situation of what this is about. So why vertical farming is important and what the problem is here and why people would want to buy this. But at the same time, I imagine that you anticipated already that you are in front of an audience that is very well aware of where they are and what they are going to hear about. So I guess we should not be too judgmental on that one.
Yeah, if I can only say, whenever you can establish a scene, it is a good idea to at least test. So if Paulina has a spontaneous idea now, I think that's a great idea. Sorry, by the way, for just rushing out of the frame, but I had to open the door for my children.
I like Lona's background.
That's what I was wondering. When Elsie was mentioning about the background of the other person that was distracting. I was wondering if it is within the frame of what you're talking about. Would it add to the feeling or to the sensation of the content, or is it also distracting?
Well, like it is now, I find it distracting because it's very, I mean, you are actually a bit hazy and the background is very clear and very bright green. And so I find it distracting. If it would be like a more hazy background or more neutral, it might help. But now I think the accent is too much on the background and too little on you. I don't know whether people can see that from themselves, but some screens like Marianne, for instance, your screen is more hazy. It's less, it has less pixels or something, and that really also makes a difference on how you see people. It's really funny how even if you rationally know that you really can't do anything about it, how that still influences how you perceive people.
Yeah, it does. Hello, Anna just came home. I just popped out of the frame to open the door for the children. And I took the opportunity to actually get my Hollywood clap to introduce now Paulina's second try. Are you ready, Paulina?
I am.
You are. Okay, so here comes Paulina's take 2.
Hello, fellow guests. It's a pleasure to have you here at our webinar of our Module X. Now, first of all, for those who are new into the vertical farming industry, you know, vertical farming is a great new way to use less water. We use 90%, or any vertical farm uses 90 to 95% less water than just the typical agriculture. And with everything that's happening now with the droughts, this is of real need. In addition to that, we also grow plants in 30 days. You know, 30 days that's compared to a land which can only produce once every year. However, if I can be honest with you, when I joined the vertical farming industry 1 year ago, I thought it was so great as I just described. However, did you know that 80% of all the vertical farms currently in the world are not profitable? Now, this is a scary number. And we have noticed it also with our clients, that there were so many people wanting to buy a vertical farm just because they thought it was cool and because it would give amazing results. Now, there are these 3 things that we did for our Module X to ensure that you are resistant to changes such as now happened that the restaurants closed, or that there are changes in the crops which you need to grow, for the following 3 things, which we will further discuss in our presentation. First of all, our system have now 98 square meters of growing surface. Just to give you an example, compared to the competitors worldwide, that's 50% more. Secondly, instead of growing the plants in 30 days, 35 days, our plant recipes will make sure that you can grow it even faster, between 14 to 28 days. And third, last but not least, we have decreased the price from 200 euros per square meter to 1,200. Now, with all these 3 things, we really believe that now your business can be profitable more easily and you can be break-even within 3 years. Thank you.
Super. I'm impressed. I'm often impressed, by the way, how fast we can turn, and certainly you did, Paulina, turn things around and on the spot come up with these ideas that other people have contributed. I think that's superb. Can I have, look at the time. Andy and Jeffrey, I should be wrapping up soon, right? I don't hear you.
I need to unmute myself.
Yeah, about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so I would, first of all, can I have a thumbs up, or if you think that was good, better what Paulina now did? And can we also have a thumbs up, or if you think, no, just a thumbs up, if you think that Paulina can still touch us a little bit more? Yeah, well, we always can, right? Paulina, this for me is not so content oriented, but I think it might be going back to what Tanya said. And I, of course, can't know for sure because I wasn't in the same room with you. But I feel that Tanya maybe felt a little bit of a more, in French one would say posé, you know, a little quieter Paulina maybe, Tanya?
Sorry, trying to find the mute button. It was again more the style of the language. It was just, I think one has a tendency, anybody has a tendency to get a bit more formal. I'm now making a presentation, therefore I need to be formal about it. And just, there's a slight change. And we lose some of the touch of the you that I saw before. And I think that's maybe what Carsten is trying to say about we should practice in front of the mirror or in front of the camera.
Yeah, I think the idea I have right now, Paulina, is that, first of all, I mean, I think you know this, you've got a fantastic enthusiasm about you that is just contagious and super. So I think the one thing is that maybe you can have the one or other short moment where you come to a deeper place, where you connect a bit more with your inner deep presence, which is what I think I'm calmer space. Could you try to deliver us one or two lines, one central message maybe of saying, and you know what, this is really different now. We think this is such a big change. Yeah, something like that. I don't know whether I'm doing it so well right now, but just take this moment to let us absorb the gravity and importance of this enthusiasm, of this thing that you're enthusiastic about.
Do you mean I smile too much? Do you mean I have to get more serious?
No.
Or deeper voice?
Yeah, no, just a calmer moment. Just a calmer, slower moment every now and then.
Okay.
Yeah, can you try that? Or do you need a moment?
No, it's fine.
Okay, then I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, so in fact, there are 3 ways how you can now improve it. First of all, it's through the growing space. We have 98 square meters of growing space compared to the 68 which we had. And that 98 square meters is 50% more than any competition has currently on the market.
Yeah. And now, I don't know when the moment would be to continue, but I think this was a moment just when you stopped that we really needed a pause to absorb what you were saying. And that so much connects with my experience when Virginia told me, Carsten, give me a moment to enjoy this moment and laugh a little bit with myself. Even online, we need this moment to absorb and all the more necessary. And well, we're all the more invited to do that when it is a moment of importance to you. I thought that was great. Okay, yeah. Just a few more minutes left. No time for another candidate. We didn't have any volunteers anyhow. I would have needed to pick somebody, I think. So let's slowly come to the end. I think we're seeing that it is not always easy or not always immediate to also find our online speaking persona. And especially it's not easy to find this power to be a persuasive online speaker who has the possibility to inspire in that moment and to lead us to this deepest place of gravitas and inspiration. I've actually struggled many years with that, to calm down myself and not be too fast when I speak. I have this tendency to just speak too fast and to move too fast. And the interesting thing is, I think I only learned this now, or I really interiorized it through this online speaking. I don't know why that is, but maybe that is because we have less in the camera, less of an instinct or these fear reactions. That's probably one of the bad things about public speaking, that there is so much reactions that we have. And I certainly realized that there are a lot of ways of hiding, and my way of hiding from the moment is maybe to speak too fast and maybe to move too fast. And we all have such things, but I think the online environment, just because our practice place is the speaking space, and maybe also because I don't see you, I don't know why, has this chance of us practicing to go to these deeper spaces, leave longer pauses, connect with our real feelings, and then get them across. And yeah, if that's an inspiration to you and reason enough to practice that a little bit, and take this evening that we spent together as really the invitation to always think about whether you need such a moment to get people to do what you need them to do, then I'd be very happy. And that's enough for me.
Well done. Thank you very much, Carsten. That was a fantastic online workshop. You certainly persuaded me, and I picked up quite a few hints and tips. Now, we have many traditions in the Imagination Club and also lots of good-looking people, but at the end of every workshop, there's one way that we like to pay back our facilitators, and that is, we like to give them some feedback. It's a huge tradition in the Imagination Club. So, Carsten, are you ready to get some feedback? Ready with his paper. That's great. All we ask is that you stay muted, because this isn't a discussion. You are just going to have the best feedback possible. Now, Jeffrey and I have traveled far and wide trying to come up with the best 3 feedback questions ever. And I'm now going to attempt to do that. But before I do the feedback questions, I'd love to take a screenshot. Now, if you don't want to be in the screenshot, then you can turn your video off, you can turn away, you can turn your back, or whatever. But otherwise, if you want to be in it, give me a really, really big smile, please. And I can say cheese now, cheese. There we go. I got a great screenshot. Perfect. So, feedback. The feedback questions that we always ask are the following. Question number 1: what did you like about the workshop? Anybody? Miriam. Unmute. There we go.
So I'm really happy about these practical ideas, like putting something in the screen. 2 weeks ago, when we had the workshop with Lars, I was so impressed about his multitasking and sharing the screen and mural and Slido, or what is Mentimeter. I felt, oh my God, how can I do that? And now I feel so relaxed with just simplify your life that this is possible. And then also to use a bell or whatever is around. So it didn't really came across to my mind, but it is so simple, and this is my main takeaway. Thank you.
Anybody else? Who else would like to give? Tell us what you liked about the workshop tonight? I can't see everybody on screen, so Jeffrey.
Boom. I like the way that Carsten just invited us to play more with, with the space that we have when we're communicating with people, and I think that inspiration alone will bring me new ideas in coming time. So that it's just the inspiration that he gave me. I really liked a lot. Thank you, Carsten.
Yeah, I'm going to give mine before I give the chance. Prashant, you're next after me. I would like to say, yeah, I love the props. I love that. I love to be reminded that I can have a lot of things near me and around me that I can bring into view, the bowl, the mouse, my phone, whatever. I can have all these things around me, and my space to everybody else looks clean. But if you could see my desk, you'd be horrified. So it's nice to know that I can have props and security around me. Prashant, your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Carsten, for so enthusiastic and interactive workshop. I liked a couple of things, like the interactive part. I got to practice my speech. Thank you for that. And secondly, you convinced me that rather than using presentations, we have like share screen on tip of our fingers. So we tend to use PowerPoint and PDF and whatnot, but you convinced me by doing so, like we may lose the human connection as you go in the corner and your presentation takes the center stage. But you convinced me that to get the human touch, as much as we can avoid the screen sharing thing, and getting to the talking using props, that works really well. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Prashant. Who's next? Who would like to give some, what did you like about the workshop? Anybody? Well, I'm switching to the other screens. I mean, yeah, Andrea.
Yeah, I think it was a big eye-opener for me because we have somehow we have more at our display, but on the other hand, we have to be aware that not only our voice is important, but also the sound quality. So we depend very much on the technical equipment, like you said, like you mentioned, the light, then sound is important, background is important. All of a sudden, my living room becomes the scene, sort of, or the background, something we are usually not showing when we go to an event and we speak there. So it was really very interesting and inspiring. Thank you very much. I actually have a question, how you're dealing with the fact that some people don't show themselves. So you are online, but you are not really seeing everyone. You just see names. How is it for you if someone does not show their image or their photos? Thanks.
Excellent. That's good feedback. Anybody else? Before I move on to question number 2. Lewis.
Did somebody want to say something?
Thank you, Carsten. What I liked is what you brought personally to this webinar, starting by your reluctancy, your skepticism with online conference,
yeah.
And then assuming at the end, acknowledging that you have learned things and that you discover or found out that you were probably hiding when talking too fast. So what I liked was this personal touch, because we can, all of us, be reflective on that. And it's a fantastic way of learning. So thank you again.
Indeed.
I would like to add one thing. So actually, the first thing I noticed and my first takeaway was really the look at the camera. It was the first time that I noticed so much that somebody's talking straight to the camera. I've been in so many business calls, nobody ever looks at the camera. So thank you for that. So finally, I know how good that feels. I mean, you feel really that somebody speaks to you directly. Yeah. And all the other things I agree with.
Excellent, thank you. Dalia, last one before I move on to the next question.
I liked very much how you did with the presentation kind of in emotional way, but these emotions were real and they were not overacted. And usually, especially through screen, we can really feel very well when it's somehow faked. And in this case was really emotional, but you showed us how it is possible to do in really, how to say, honest way. And it was very good. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Which brings me to the second question. And the second question that we normally ask people is, of course, for the I can't remember what you call it in Toastmaster language, but we're not a Toastmaster, so we'll use the Imagination Club language. What would you change if Carsten was going to hold the same workshop next Wednesday for another bunch of people? What would you ask him to tweak? What would you add? What would you take away? What would you change? Prashant.
Yeah, I mean, nothing much to change, but I was expecting him in the conclusion to reiterate those 3 points he wanted to talk, like practice space is speaking space, then props in the box, and lastly, pathos through you.
Yes.
I would like to, I mean, close the loop, you know, and then you are concluding with impact, I think. Thank you.
I have something, but it's good because it made me think of something I have to do as well. With the importance of lighting, unfortunately, I think we have to take off our glasses because you get the reflection of the light in the glasses, and that can be a bit exactly. So that's why I took off my glasses, and that's something that I will try and think of next time I have an online meeting.
Very good. I like that. Yeah, I'm often bothered by that. I've got lights in front of me, as you can see. So And I haven't got contact lenses, so it's not easy. Anybody else? What would you tweak? Andrea?
The task was not completely clear when we went to the breakout rooms.
Okay, very good. And on that note, I would have liked a little bit longer in the breakout rooms as well, maybe a minute or two longer. A lot of nodding heads there. Okay, Ella.
So I feel a bit awkward speaking now because there was so much I liked. So I wanted to slip that in quickly before I give you a piste for développement. Two things that I would mention. That first question that you said that your sparring partner or your fellow Toastmaster said to you, she asked me in 6 words, blah, blah, blah. And I found that it was an opportunity to have a really powerful 6-word question. So I have spent most of the session in a parallel process in my brain working out what that 6-word question could be. And so I'd like to offer you the question, why not give it a go? Okay, it's amazing how distracted I got by that question. And the second thing that I would say could really be usefully emphasized was I've also had some time to focus on persuasion and the power of it. And pathos is actually 65% of every presentation, and ethos 10 and logos 25. At least that's the way I learned it. And I thought if you emphasize that, you could bring that message across even more strongly. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Ella. Great feedback. Anybody else? Last bit of feedback? Yes, Paulina.
Yeah, one of the props, I mean, I loved how you used the props, and I actually was wondering whether you did it on purpose or not. There was this prop where you said your practice space is your speaking space. The K looked like an R, like a sparing space. So I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but I thought I would mention, how actually, maybe because when you zoom it a bit out, you might interpret it in a different way. But yeah, I was just, in my head, I was like, oh, sparing? Oh no, speaking space.
Excellent. Anybody else? Any more hands up? Okay, well, let's move on to the final question. And as always, this is my favorite question. Always save the best bit for last. What will you take away with you? What specific bit of information will you go away with tonight? What will you take away? Your main takeaway? Magali?
But I think everybody has learned something is definitely look into the camera. So I think everybody will be sticking a piece of paper next to the camera on your laptop, because it does make a huge difference. It's something completely simple, but it makes the whole experience completely different, and it does feel really, really weird, which I'm trying now, and it just doesn't work for me. So that's definitely one thing. And the second thing, I think that I've got the same problem that you have, Carsten, is that I have a tendency of speaking very fast and speaking a lot with my hands. So I think that's something that this whole gravitas thing, that you do come over as more credible, as more reliable if you take the time to pause, and if you give the other person the time to let it sink in and look you in the eye through the camera and feel that they really do have someone they can listen to. Voilà.
Sorry, I was taking a drink there. Yes, Ella again, sorry. And then Colette.
So I have a point to make about gravitas. And I think this might have fit into category 2 of what you could do differently, but it's certainly something I'm taking away as well. So gravitas, we often understand as being seriousness or knowledgeableness or whatever it is. And I think it's useful for me to be taking away from this that gravitas doesn't necessarily mean that, as we saw with Paulina. She didn't need to become more serious to become more credible. So again, I think it's about this blending of the pathos, the ethos, and the logos, which if you rely on logos, you can get some gravitas, which means you don't have to compromise on bringing across your personality or your real story in the pathos part.
Thank you. Colette, our resident writer.
I'm doing a training, a 2-day training next week, and tomorrow, first thing, I'm going to take my PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to check every single slide if it's absolutely necessary, and if it's not, I'm going to throw it out. I'm definitely taking that away with me today. Yeah, thanks.
Fantastic. Great. What an effect. What an effect. Lenka.
So I will definitely remember to think about from which emotion to which another emotion you want to take people who you want to influence and persuade. I think it's such a simple way how to look at it, and this I will keep in mind.
Fantastic. That's yeah, great feedback. What great feedback, guys. Anybody else? No, I can't see any hands going up. So let's give another round of applause to Carsten. Thank you very, very, very much. Although it's mostly silent, everyone's got their microphones on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's come to the, sadly, it's come to the end of yet another fantastic Imagination Club workshop. You've all seen a little bit of how it works. If you're not on the mailing list, send an email to Jeffrey or myself to get on the mailing list, or you can sign up on the website, imaginationclub.org, or you can follow us on the Facebook group. And I'd love to see your happy, sunny, shining faces again at our future workshops. So I wish you all a very, very lovely evening. Thank you again, Carsten. Thank you all for your feedback. Thank you all for participating. And I look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe, stay well.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Carsten.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah.